of Retreks brought to you by Strongbow.
Space, final frontier. These are the voyages of Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Retrek. I'm Captain Jim, and with me, of course, is Admiral Elliot.
Hi there.
And Dr. Squee.
Ahoy, hoy. And by the way, I did not intend for me saying this episode of Retreks brought to you by Strongbow to go on the live show. However, if Strongbow's listening and want to send us a crate each, just say.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
I believe Elliot's
Stella.
I was going to say you guys are partial to the dark fruits, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take a crate of the cloudy. It's very refreshing on summer's day.
Since we're going the sponsorship, or Pepsi Max Cherry, if you want to send us.
Just there you go. Yeah.
So I like the fact that you waited until the actual podcast recording started to apologise for inadvertent sponsorship by putting inadvertent sponsorship on the live.
I know. I must make a note on my iPad, which I find a superior form of tablet.
The original and the best, some would say. So we're here to talk about Equality of Mercy, which is the finale of Strange New Worlds, and
which I've misspelt on the thumbnail.
And we were talking last week, saying last week really felt like a season finale, and how could they possibly top it? What are they going to do? I don't think any of us thought they were going to do this.
No.
But I think this was a pretty good finale. You know, this was something really special.
That was a baller move.
I sort of, early on with the episode, I realised where it might be going when they were at the outpost.
I mean, obviously.
And then I thought, this is bloody brave. And then it's like, they've only gone and nailed it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, the direct parallel is Balance of Terror. But the other one that reminded me of quite a lot was the trouble with Tribbles, for the whole idea of going into an original venture. Obviously, in this one, they didn't use the footage. But, man, I saw this thing, which I didn't even realize when I was watching. This is how deep cuts they went. There's certain freeze frames, if you take them from this episode, of like Spock sitting in the chair and Pike over him. And if you look at, they did side by sides, and there's an exact duplicate from the original episode.
It's even how they filmed it. Like, there's all sorts of shots, and they get the light over the eyes when it's serious, like what they did in the original series. It's just so well done. It's just such a homage. Yeah,
the music cues and everything.
Yeah.
I heard it described as, it's kind of like when Marvel does them what if comics, or what if there's a TV show now. And it's, what if Captain America had have been the one who got caught in the cave instead of Iron Man or whatever. And this is Star Trek doing that. It's okay. What if it had been Captain Pike instead of Captain Kirk in Balance of Terror? And, we've had conversations like that on this podcast where we said, right, this is what Pike did. What would Picard have done? What would Janeway have done? What would Kirk have done? And the fact that the writers obviously think stuff like that and then go, you know what, that's going to be the season finale. Let's do a what if.
It's a fine needle to thread as well, because you're basically saying our hero of the piece. No, like Strange New Worlds is a wonderful ensemble piece. I'm not claiming else, but let's face it, the captain, apart from in Discovery in the earlier series, is the star of the show.
Yeah.
And you've got to do an episode where he has proved out and out he is the wrong man to be in that place at that time.
Yeah.
And still have us rooting for him and have us rooting for the original timeline and not have that overshadow him, because it would be really easy to make Kirk look good and make Pike look bad, which you don't want to do on Pike's show. And they threaded that needle amply. They did it perfectly. It was so well done.
It was done so well, because it was, like you said, it wasn't Pike's wrong, Kirk's right. Pike was right as well in his approach to this. Arguably was better than Kirk's. It just happened that it didn't pan out. And that didn't undermine Pike at all, which is the cleverest part, that it's just, it was just a twist of fate that the right guy was on the bridge when it actually happened. But Pike did absolutely nothing wrong here. It's so clever.
I mean, there's a lot of people who've said about kind of like in the past with Churchill. Like, you know, I know obviously it is kind of satanic worship, basically, to claim that he was anything but perfect in every way, in every form. However, some people have speculated, some communists, that maybe he was just the right person in the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. And he did everything perfectly to get us through the war. However, in other times he did things wrong. And like if he was Prime Minister now, he would probably be the wrong Prime Minister for this moment. However, he's the perfect one for that time. And that's what Kirk is. And that's what Pike isn't in this moment. It doesn't mean he's a bad captain. It's just he wasn't the right captain for this moment.
And that's the thing. It's very specifically this moment. There's probably so many moments where Pike could have got as good a result or a better result than Kirk did. And there's probably moments that we've already seen with Pike. If Kirk had been in charge, it wouldn't have played out as well. So it's just serendipitous that he was the right guy there at the right time. Though I'm sure we'll dig into more about Kirk as we go through. But yeah, I'm in total agreement with you guys on it.
Just for people watching the video, sorry if anyone is listening on audio, but if I position myself right, I've just basically become his goatee.
Yeah, you have become Matt Leonard's beard. Yeah, kind of like that Simon and Garfunkel album. Is it Bridge Over Troubled Water? If you put your thumb on.
Sorry. Anyway, that very much distracted me for a second. I apologise.
At least he's amusing himself. Everyone, don't worry.
I mean, that's the most I do on my own show, so fuck it.
Yeah, the opening then, and this has been a thing with Strange New Worlds all the way through, is they're not afraid to splash some of the cash around. Like, this opening shot of the outpost is so intricate and so extravagant, and the camera's swooping all over the place. Like, you really don't need to do that.
No, you don't.
Like, you could just have an establishing shot. But I feel like this has been a thing all season where they have just spent money where it's not been necessary. Like going back to episode 2, that comet episode, you had shots from the planet of aliens looking up and seeing the comet. And it's like, so you've gone out on location to film something. You've put people in makeup and you've done a VFX shot that none of that was necessary to the story. But it's a flourish, and I think it's great.
I think it's also addressing one of the big criticisms of Discovery, that it's very hard to see some of the effects in space and some of the effects and all that they haven't been good. And I think they've really knuckled down and gone, no, we're going to do it, and it's going to look.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Discovery don't seem to be, because like this isn't the first show which has started doing that right, and Discovery doesn't seem to be paying a lot of attention and going, yeah, maybe we should do that.
Well,
they're like, we're the show that doesn't show you any ships. We're that show.
Yeah.
Let's see how the next season pans out. But yeah, at the moment, I think we're in agreement that Discovery should be showing the ships more.
Or at all. I don't know.
Or at all.
Yeah.
And anything but a wide shot where you can see grains of sand on the screen. Just suggesting. I don't know.
So like Elliot said, we're at the neutral zone. This is the same outpost as in Balance of Terror. Obviously, we're in a different time frame at this point.
Yeah, but it's like straight away we sort of like, we've been here. What's going to happen here?
Yeah, exactly. And it does make you start to think, oh, they're going to do something with it. But again, I didn't expect what they did do. I wanted to ask you a chef question, though, Elliot. So is this a real dish that Pike's making? It is.
Yes.
What was he making again?
Spaghetti Allemande. Just leftovers. Allemande is spaghetti of the day.
Right. And so you just whack an egg on it.
But egg will make it like a creamy sauce with the cheese. And you just stir it very quickly before it scrambles. So it's almost like an emulsion.
Right. I mean, it looked good. Yeah. I don't think
it's actually part of Anson Mount's actual character. Is this with Pike cooking? It's something of himself that they've brought into the show.
Oh, you know what we need? We had Neelix's cookbook. We need a Captain Pike's cookbook.
Definitely.
Captain Pike's will probably be awesome. Because Anson Mount in real life is meant to be a really good cook, and he cooks to sort of be welcoming to people. So he does do a lot of the things that we're seeing him do in the show is actually what he does in real life.
It's just a lovely way of showing him just chatting with people, like even in proper briefings, he's just having a conversation while he's cooking.
I was reading something about it, and there was a Akiva Goldsmith, I think, sort of saw what it was like, went for a meeting with him, and just thought, that's really good. That's a really good character trait. Let's put that in.
Yeah. Really nice. It really fits with the character's idea of like, I don't want to just captain you. I want to get to know you. I want to get your skills from you as a person, which we can then utilize with you as an officer. And that's what I'm doing is I'm cooking. I'm using something I know to have a nice, relaxed environment while I'm talking to you. I'm creating that environment. Yeah. It's great.
So in this particular instance, his on-off girlfriend, she doesn't seem as impressed. She's like, oh, we had spaghetti yesterday. And I know he explains that it's a completely different dish, but I think she's a bit ungrateful there. It's like, no, there's a replicator there if you're not happy with the spaghetti. Yeah,
I think it's because everyone loves Pike so much. He needs someone who's going to bust his chops like she does. It's the guy who used to follow the king behind going, you are just a man. You are just a man. Kings of old used to hire them to do this. And you got to have that person. You're just a captain. You're just a captain.
We get a graphic then of the neutral zone, and obviously it's considerably updated from what we saw in Balance of Terror. However, the actual labeling of it, there's a big thing in Balance of Terror that people have talked about for years, like, is it a mistake? Is it a typo? And it lists the Romulan planets, and there's Romulus. And you would expect the other one to be Remus, but it's not. It's on the screen as ROM2 or ROM-II.
Yeah.
And people have talked about it for years. And I thought, are they going to correct it in this? But they don't. It still says ROM2. So I was like, brilliant. That's a great little detail.
May I? Because I think I know the answer to this. Being a descendant of Ireland through my mother, you've got Derry, which is also known as Londonderry. Mm-hmm. That's what Romulus and Rom2 is. The people from Romulus call it Rom2. Yeah. People on there call it Remus.
Remus. Yeah. I think you'll find we're called Remus. Like, you'll be called what we tell you. Now, shut up.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a bit of casual Romulan racism there.
Maybe that's where the ones with the ridges on the foreheads live, is Rom2 at the moment before they mix with each other. And
they actually used to be one society, but then they had a Romsit, which was the separation. Anyway, so I interrupted you for that shit joke. I'm so sorry.
No. I mean, that joke was every bit as good as when you did it about the Klingons, and it was a Klingon. So,
and I did it about every other species that's come up.
It's fine. We'll have another one soon as well, so it's good.
That's fine. Yeah.
Another original series callback, and we talked about this a bit earlier when they had the commemorative badges. On the space station, they've actually got a different badge instead of the Enterprise Delta, and it does match the one from Balance of Terror. So I'm sure this creates all sorts of continuity problems, and people will be tearing their hair out, but
there's sort of like back. Is it a continuity problem if it's not a Delta, but it's the same badge that they had in the original series?
Well, exactly. Yeah. So it goes back to being an original series continuity error again now.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a continuity error because you've had this thing before. Whenever they've got new uniforms, we know the real reason why they're using the old uniforms in the background is to save on budget while they make more. However, in show, it's just like it's transitional period where they're going over to new uniforms. I like to think on the ships they had their own deltas, and then this is the transition period where some ships are still using the old ones, and they're transitioning over. They'll get there.
Yeah, like they are retrofitting them and taking them all the new stuff.
That's true, but they've still got.
They have been asking for all the new stuff for 5 years.
But they've still got the different badges in the flash forwards. So, you know what? Go on Memory Alpha and see what they've made of it. I'm sure there's lots of debate and things like that.
I don't think that's the biggest continuity problem people are complaining about.
I don't think it is. But I know what the big one is that they're complaining about. Oh, we'll get there then. So then on the station, and this is where it ties back to the earlier episodes, we get one of the cadets before he becomes a cadet. And it sparks Pike's idea that, maybe I can save these kids. And he starts writing the letter. And that's when we get Future Pike or Admiral Pike. And
I like how he's in the movie era uniform, but it's been slightly updated.
Yeah, they've modernized it again.
Before we go into that, I did think the one thing I was hoping for from this episode, and it's a trifling point, but I hoped at the end he would go back and see the kid and go, "Hey, sorry about before, Sluggy, good luck," and everything. Because basically, from that kid's point of view, his hero, he's going to go, "Oh, I got a million questions. God, you're my best, my favorite captain from Starfleet. Sorry, I'm feeling sick. I'm out of here, kid." And he it's like the way he delivers it.
Yeah.
So like that guy has just had his hero just destroy him, and he's still joined Starfleet. That's how much of a hero that kid is.
Maybe he's like, I'm going to prove him wrong. Or actually, maybe the subplot is that kid causes the accident. He's like, "Oh, Captain Pike's visiting. I'm going to plant this plasma bomb and we'll see, won't we?" And then it just goes wrong and he ends up getting caught in it as well. But another thing is when Pike goes, "I'm not feeling so well," he goes, "Number one and Mr. Spock will answer your questions." And then the very next scene, Number One follows him out, and it's like, if you Spock, you sat there going, "I can't believe it. They've both pissed off." Like,
and then in their reality, Spock goes out about 5 minutes later.
Yeah,
to see him.
Exactly. So that meeting does not go well. But then, so he turns up. He's got the Wrath of Khan uniform, but it has been modernized like they've done with all the other ones. Yeah, it's got the sort of leather effect on the arm.
And it goes down a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, but it's very recognizable as what.
Oh god, and be honest with you, if anything, I think
I was thinking, what a bunch of twats, because I need to replace my uniform.
Well, now you can get the newer ones.
I know.
See, the thing was, I was thinking the change is so minor. Why even bother? They should have just stuck with, like. I mean, they didn't offend me, but it's like, why? Well, they just put
the reality is they'll have had to make a new uniform anyway, so why not alter it slightly?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's one of them ones that there will be fans who this really makes them angry, because arguably updating the original series uniforms, we've talked about a million times, like, it was such a long time ago, and TV was different, and cameras were different, and colours were different in how the cameras...
Well, we've talked about the colour anyway, that they were told by the studio to put more colour in.
So
after the pilot, because of how much money they just spent to go colour.
My point is, you can see why they'd update the original series ones. The movie ones, there's nothing wrong with them. No, they didn't really need an update. So I can see some fans being like Squee just said, why do it when you don't need...
Because it's an alternate timeline, so you can get it as an alternate timeline.
You're right.
Uniform. But basically, it just doesn't matter at all. I mean, like, it's such a mind change again. I wonder why bother, but it didn't offend me one iota. Like, it's like the original series uniforms. They're so true to them.
Because what you don't realise is the other cadet that is saved, that died, that is when he's altered the timeline, didn't join Starfleet. It instead went on to become a fashion designer.
There it is, yeah.
Well, no, he did join Starfleet.
He had a lemon fetish.
I like to think he did join Starfleet, but like after averting crises there, he then went off to Deep Space Nine, where he met a simple tailor who showed him his trade.
It's like in the Kelvin timeline, there was clearly someone aboard the Kelvin who died, who thought that we should have red buzzard collectors, and then he died, and in the Kelvin timeline they thought, no, let's have blue buzzard collectors. So there you go. Now, the credits, and I wasn't paying full attention the first time, so this didn't bother me. But after they had the whole thing they revealed that there was a new person cast as Kirk, and they said he's in season 2 to throw us off the scent, and everything, they list him on the credits, and it's like, I can't believe you've done that again after you did it in so many times in Picard. Like, it's meant to be a surprise. Don't list. I know it might be a Screen Actors Guild thing, or it might be the guy's agent going, I want an on-screen credit.
It's actually a lot to do with the agents how to negotiate the
Yeah.
things. That's
But it
why.
sounds
What's his name? Isn't in the Wharf of Khan credits?
because I mean, if you're gonna
Oh,
go
no,
there,
Who played Khan's second in command?
yeah.
Yeah, and it's because his agent wanted him build with the original crew members, and he went no, and his agent went fine. I'll waive credit. I waive the credit, and it's not like why are you doing that to me?
It's just one of the, and if it is a thing like that, it's the compromise is usually what you do is you have their name be the first name that appears when the episode finishes. So instead of producer or whatever,
guest
you're a
starring.
special guest star. And that's the usual compromise. But
yeah, because that's crazy. Because if he's going to be in however many episodes of season 2, he'll have plenty of exposure.
Exactly.
And this is a surprise thing. And if anything, I think the baller move of suddenly appearing in the episode is supposed to be credited. Again, like you, I didn't notice it. I was lucky. But the baller move is you suddenly appear, and that adds so much more drama to your appearance that it's better for your career, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know what the reason was for it, but they did the same thing with Frakes in the finale of season 1 of Picard. It's like, just stop.
They did it with Jerry Ryan when she came into Picard.
Yeah, when she was in right at the end. Yeah, so just stop doing it. If there's a surprise guest character, we don't want them in the opening credits.
Yeah, let it be a surprise.
Yeah. And I like the sort of callbacks to the Klingons and the time crystals and everything like that. You can get that addressed directly. Like, no, it's them who've sent me, because we've made a mess of it, really. So.
And I've got to say, they're very tight with the logic on this one. So it's like, right, I'm sent back by the time crystals. I've seen alternate futures, so if you try and fuck around here, it's not going to work. I know that, like they cover any questions which the audience might ask, which is all I ask. Even if it's just sometimes a pseudoscience thing, or if it's a one-line explainer, which, the version of the one I always go to is the Heisenberg compensators, which is named after the problem. How do they work? Very, very well, thank you, was Gene Roddenberry's answer every time it had gone. Perfect example. You just need a line to explain it, and they do this every time this episode.
They do.
And I appreciate the hell out of it. Yeah,
and the setup is really basic. It's okay, I want you to see where it all goes wrong so that you know not to mess up again. Yeah. And effectively, this is one of those episodes that we moaned a lot about in Voyager, where this episode doesn't happen to all intents and purposes. This is a 5-minute episode. Pike goes and has a chat with some cadets. He feels a bit sick. He goes back to his quarters for 5 minutes, and that's it. But
and Una's already left the room after 5 minutes. Spock's had enough, so he's off to check on Pike. So, can I just, when you first saw Pike, though, are there 2 people or any one person you thought he looked like? With older Pike, sorry.
Not specifically, no. I'm interested to see where you go with this.
I think it's the most he's looked, and he already looks quite a lot like Jeffrey, the original actor who played Pike.
Jeffrey Hunter, yeah.
Jeffrey Hunter. I think he looks the most like him, older, like as if he's been aged.
Yeah.
The other one I thought, and perfect timing, like R.I.P. Ray Liotta.
Really? Yeah.
He looked very Ray Liotta, like Ray Liotta.
Yeah.
With no disrespect to the wonder which was Ray Liotta, God rest his soul. It's like Ray Liotta at his thinness he was when he was younger, but how he looked when he was older, mixed in.
Right. Yeah. I can see that. Yeah. They go back and he's in this wedding now. And this was the first point I started to wonder if this is what they were going to do. So I'm like, oh, that's like in Balance of Terror. I wasn't 100% on, that's what they're doing.
I got it quite early on that it was Balance of Terror. Like, as soon as I started that, the time crystal, and that they'd been to the outpost.
Yeah.
It was sort of, they're going there somehow.
Although, this was the least, it's the only kind of, again, it's a quibbling qualm, because I know he's just traveled through time and everything, but I reckon Pike's fast talking enough that he could bluff a wedding ceremony.
You'd have thought so, like you'd have done.
I think it was just thrown a bit because he literally goes into the future and he's there.
Yeah, but I just think he's that good that he could bluff a wedding.
Change of circumstances and everything.
It's kind of like Picard in All Good Things. It took him a while to get into the swing of it to the point just pick up where he left off.
Yeah, but you see, that's the difference. Picard, when he goes to the future, Picard, especially in that time, they were exploring the fact that he was getting less uptight and more relaxed around people as he got older. However, he's the person who would worry about the duty first. Whereas I reckon Pike would be going, I don't want to fuck up anyone's wedding here. Let's make sure I think he would have bluffed it better. But again, quibbling point.
So speaking of people being more uptight and everything, I love Ethan Peck's Spock in this episode because, and I feel like this had credence to my argument that we are seeing Spock develop to where he was, because to me, this is the most Nimoy he's ever felt. It felt to me like a completely different performance, and I could see immediately just from the way he held himself, the way he talked, that this is a different Spock. This is Spock further along his journey to embracing more of his Vulcan side, and I just thought he was absolutely outstanding in this episode. And I like that Pike confides in him immediately, and they do the mind meld and everything. And I wonder if, I don't know, like whether some Vulcan mumbo jumbo will come in and present Spock will somehow remember bits of this mind meld, or so that he's experienced what Pike experienced. I don't know.
I hope not. That ruins the timeline if they do that.
No, I don't think they'll do that.
I like the idea of Spock having experienced Pike's pain effectively.
I do like that, but to me, I hate anything which, like, when I watch the original series episodes, it takes away. And if he saw the Romulans on screen for the first time...
Oh, no, I'm not talking about
and there wasn't the same choice. Yeah, but it's like...
If he just gets memories of what Pike shows him in this mind meld. So,
no, I don't think he will. I don't think...
No, maybe he won't. He probably won't.
Unless he has another mind meld with Pike, and then he will.
And then that's the easier way of doing it, yeah.
I mean, already we've seen that Spock apparently just forgets Kirk's brother. So, he's very, very forgetful when he gets older.
Yeah. And then there's some interesting placement in the timeline here, because Spock says it's 6 months after that accident, which means that in this timeline, Balance of Terror happens after the menagerie. But if you look at the original series, in broadcast order, Balance of Terror does happen after the menagerie, but in production order, it's the other way around. Yeah. So I feel like finally, canonically, they're saying the broadcast order is the correct order, which throws up its own problems, and it means the Man Trap is the first ever episode, which makes no sense. But if that's the way they want to go with it, it's the way most people watch it.
If you're going to go technically, The Cage is the first episode.
Well, yes, but so most people watch it in broadcast orders. That's the way it is on all the streaming services. It's the way it is on the DVDs. The only time I remember it being shown in production order was when Sky re-showed it in the late 80s, early 90s. They showed it in British TV, and also the British VHSs had it in production order. But to my knowledge, that's the only time it's ever been done that way.
Yeah, because I remember when they had, it was James Doohan, Walter Koenig, and George Takei would do the intros to the 30th anniversary ones. And I think they were the first release which put it in production order. I think the original releases were in broadcast order.
No, the original release was still in production order.
Are you sure?
I am sure.
Because I thought in the intros to the 30th anniversary, they said this is the first time they've been released in this order.
I don't know. I mean,
maybe I'm misremembering.
It was the first time they released them 3 episodes per tape.
I know if that arsehole at Weekend hadn't been such a knob.
You would.
Wanting to charge what he wanted for the video. That he couldn't sell to anyone for several years.
And he's probably put them in a bin now. So
I know. It was only 2 episodes at DVD, wasn't it? Still on the 30th
It was
anniversary?
2 episodes of tape the first time they released it. But then they put 3 on for that one with the interviews on it. Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah, that was the re-release of it, and that was a strong argument for the skip chapter button that we now have on DVDs, because the first time you listened to the stories, you were like, oh, what a story. But then the second time, you're like, yeah, I just want to watch the episode now, and you had to fast forward 10 minutes of George Takei. story.
The saddest one was James
George
Doohan.
Takei's great with his stories.
He is, but the one I want to give the one which was really sad was James Doohan. He was still doing pretty well considering he was dealing with Alzheimer's, but it was in the midst of basically his mind decaying from Alzheimer's or whatever it was, I think it was Alzheimer's. And so you could tell sometimes you just lose the thread of what he's saying and just pause, and then mid-sentence, and it was just, I felt so bad because it's like, again, to be able to tell the stories as well as he did into that progression is still very impressive. But it just felt I felt sorry for him, which I don't want to feel for someone so great. I shouldn't.
No, I only had a couple of those, so I think I only had ones with George Takei's stories, and I mean,
did you mention teacups?
I can't remember. But
it's not a George Takei story if you hadn't got a teacup in it.
That's it. I mean, Elliot's referring to when we saw him at a convention once, and he is brilliant because you get a lot of these interviews on stage at conventions, and it's all on the interviewer. And as an interviewer yourself, Dr. Squee, sometimes you have to work quite hard to get a story out of someone. George Takei sits down and he does a 20-minute monologue of his best stories before the interviewer has to even say a word.
Yeah,
and then up to everyone else. He knows the main stories you want to hear. Then he's happy to let everyone else lead it. But he's just so good at it.
And I'll tell you why I think that is. I think because George had to go through so many years of not being himself or denying a part of himself, at least to the media. He said that everyone on set pretty much knew, apart from Shatner, because he was oblivious, which you'd believe. Yeah. And I think he had so many years of making these compromises. When he released himself as himself, I think he just now, it's like, I'm just going to have a good time with this. I don't know what you're going to take out of this, but I'm going to have a good time.
And that is what comes across from him all the time. That he is enjoying himself. He's great.
I mean, just think about it. Sorry, just one on George Takei moment. It's the fact that he had to go through that with his identity as a gay man. After going through all that as a Japanese American through the internment camps, all that which went into it, and then he had to hide who he was in this other way after many Japanese Americans having to hide something about themselves earlier on. Just think of the floodgates which opened when he just was like, "I'm just me, fuck you all." I'm just like, "Oh my, that's me. I'm gonna go for it."
Yeah. I mean, he is a remarkable person in lots of ways,
Sorry, I know it's a tangent, but
like you say, the things he's been through, the point is, you know what? You shouldn't fast forward his story on them VHSs. I take it back. Listen to what George has to say.
And be very forgiving if James Doohan loses his place. He was going through some stuff.
So, they get the distress call then. And this is word for word, isn't it, from what we get in Balance of Terror. And there's a lot of instances in the episode. I just think that's great. And I think what's beautiful about this episode is it works on two levels. Like, you could watch this if you'd never seen Balance of Terror.
Yeah.
And you'd get the central story. Yeah, it's a morality thing for Pike. But when you've seen it, it adds so much more to it. And I've seen online people saying, "Oh, I watched this with my partner, or I watched this with my son," or whatever it is. And then afterwards I said, right, you need to watch Balance of Terror. And that's how they've hooked them into the original series. I think,
right.
And then if you've not seen the actor's name in the credits, alarm bells start going off when they say it's the Farragut. You're like, "Ooh, I know what that means."
And he also pays reference to the the one from the Kelvin. I was going to say the one. I almost said the one from the Kelvin timeline. That's what I almost said there. Just to point out my own idiocy in my own mind.
Yeah, they mentioned the Kelvin later on, which is great.
Nicely done. Nicely done.
I love this introduction to Kirk, and we'll talk about what we think about the performance in a minute. But the fact that, albeit in an alternate timeline, we see the first meeting between Kirk and Spock, and it's this conversation over the view screen, but it doesn't dull the fact that, whoa, this is a monumentous thing. It's the first time these two people meet. And the fact that they spark off each other straight away, it's like, oh, that's a good point, Mr. Spock. Yeah, I just think it's brilliant.
And you've got to play that moment come twice, because they also have that moment when they're in the captain's ready room for Pike.
Yeah.
And then it's like, Captain. And like Kirk gives them a little nod. I don't know, it was just something about the moment of them meeting face to face as well. It didn't feel forced, but it felt like you got that moment twice. One of them meeting for the first time on the view screen, and then them meeting in person, and the three of them being there in the room. That did feel really exciting to me.
Yeah, it was really good stuff. So what do we think about the performances, Kirk, then?
I mean, Ellie, do you want to go first?
Yeah,
we're both doing the same face.
I'm sort of... His performance was all right, but I didn't buy him as being Kirk.
That was it. That was my thing exactly. I thought he was a great actor.
Wrong with his acting.
No.
But it wasn't Kirk.
I could even see the moments when he was trying to call William Shatner where he gave a slight pause before the next word. And I could see those beats, and it's like, I appreciate you trying. However, you have not got an ounce of the swagger of Kirk.
No,
like, you really need to be a big blowhard to be William Shatner, like, to be that character. Like, I mean, you look at Pine's portrayal, it was totally different from William Shatner's. However, he had that swagger. It was his own swagger, but it portrayed that part of it. So it's that difference between playing the actor or playing the character. And Pine played the character, not the actor, with a couple nods to the actor. This guy was playing a completely new character, it felt like. And again, even though I really appreciate the moments of him, Spock, and Pike in the same room, it never felt like
it was Kirk.
Like it was Kirk, no. And he has to bring that in next series if he's going to do it.
To a large extent, I agree. I feel like there wasn't the charisma there. There's also the thing, Kirk.
If next season it nails the charisma and swagger, you can look back on this and go, this is because it's an alternate timeline.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the youngest captain in Starfleet history who was immediately made captain of the flagship.
Yeah. That is something that I did wonder. And going back to the fact that
is actually in a different timeline, so he hasn't had the huge promotion that Kirk had.
I think if you look, this episode to me confirms that Ethan Peck absolutely gets it, and he is modulating his performance as Spock.
Yeah.
And like you just said then, I wonder if this is deliberately not the way he's going to play Kirk, because exactly like you said, this isn't the Kirk that we know. And I feel like the end of this episode is Pike's like, right, I'm gonna take an interest in this guy's career. And I wonder if the Kirk that we know is the Kirk we know because of Pike's influence. And that's what we're going to see. We're going to meet him a little bit younger. And Pike's going to carve a diamond out of the rough kind of thing and make him even better than he would have been.
You could also chuck in there, because Pike, to begin with, thinks he's a brash kind of know-it-all, whatever. He's worried about this guy and following his lead. Whereas maybe if when he meets him again when he's younger for the first time, but he remembers meeting him before, you could play it almost like he meets him again thinking, oh God, I trust this guy now. And then he meets him and he's womanizing and he's doing this and the other. And maybe it builds up that mistrust again, which he then has to get over. That would be really nice.
I think we're going to see Pike knocking the rough edges off of Kirk. And I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt here that this performance doesn't feel like Kirk because it's not the Kirk we know.
Because it's an alternate timeline.
And I'll add to this also that, again, I agree. I just want to point this out because I know I've been sometimes harsh on the Spock portrayal earlier on. Not like of the acting of Ethan Peck. I've never said that it's anything but great, but just of the way they've characterized it. The thing is with that character is if you make Spock less logical, you kind of lose a bit of the USP. With Kirk, you do need the swagger to be Kirk. But in this, his USP seemed very clear that he thought differently to Pike.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think that's what was missing for me very early doors in this show for Spock. They made him so human to make him not special in the show.
Yeah,
that's how he was in the cage.
But that was one episode, and even in the cage, though, there were moments of him being very logical.
Yeah,
I don't know. It felt like at the beginning of this of Strange New Worlds, I couldn't see the point of Spock in this, I must admit. Whereas now I really do. And they built him up. Now they've added a few more logical edges. I would like to see more of the struggle between the humanity and the logic. Whereas at the beginning of the series, they steered really into the humanity and kind of lost the logic. That's what was missing for me in the earlier episodes.
Yeah, but as I say, I think this shows how deliberate that's been.
Completely. I just think they might have misplayed it earlier on with how much they lean towards the emotion.
No, I get it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I like the way what they've done is, even though we've got different characters on the bridge, like some of them are the same, but they've taken traits and roles and lines that other people had and reassigned them. Like Ortegas now is the one who just wants to go after them. And you don't have I forget the guy's name, but the guy who really didn't like the Romulans and got really funny with Spock.
I know what you mean. I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
But yeah, and so a lot of his lines...
I won't stand for that on my bridge.
Yeah.
This also does suggest as well that when Pike left, like most of the crew went, "Fuck it, I'm out. I'm going," because they really did lean on the Strange New Worlds crew being on the ship.
7 years though. I don't know, but I like what we've done with Ortegas and Lan. Like we've basically swapped them. Like Ortegas is now, instead of being the fun-loving one, he's really hard-edged, and Lan has gone all soft and fluffy. You know,
Yes.
I really like this idea of, whoa, so what's happened that's caused this? And then I like the fact that Kirk, even though he's not in charge now, brings in elements of what he does in Balance of Terror. You know, it's like, right, well, we'll shadow them and follow them. And you're like, yeah, no, that was Kirk's idea in the original.
Yeah. We'll see the trail in the comic.
Yeah. And
it was also a nice way of showing the... even though Kirk's a bit more hard line with the Romulans, he still does have that humanity. So when Pike goes like, "Hey, can we do this with a bit of diplomacy?" Kirk tries to bring in that.
Yeah, he does.
Like that element of it to it. So it was really nice.
Yeah, I like that Pike goes, right, I want to speak to Sam and get his thoughts on Jim Kirk.
Yeah.
And it's one of them, like, we said this when we looked at Lower Decks, the episode of TNG, which is, you see Riker from the Lower Decks perspective, and you're like, well, of course, if Riker was your boss, you'd think he's a knobhead. And it's like, of course, if Kirk's your younger brother, you would think he's a dickhead. It's, you know.
It was so nicely done, though. It really brought home that thing of like, not only with brothers, but also your best mates. It's that whole thing is like, yeah, it can be a right dick, but like, he's our dick. He's like, you know, there's no one finding him.
But he's a really good captain.
He's absolutely really good. He's just a pain in the ass.
Yeah. But Starfleet has no finer captain. That was just a really beautiful line. And again, I appreciate that a lot more than him just going, it's like, yes, he's just wonderful. Like he's saying, it's like he's got these things to him. He will play poker with these things. He will take risks, but he is a great captain.
I think an interesting little nuance that I thought with Kirk is he says, once we get the reveal of the Romulan and we do get the replay of Spock raising the eyebrow and everything, and that's brilliant.
Which apparently is the first time in Strange New Worlds, just quickly.
Yeah. So Kirk raises the question of, well, you know, isn't it a bit convenient that now's the time they've chosen to do it? And I don't remember him asking that in Balance of Terror. And it made me think, right, so this is a Kirk who doesn't know Spock. So therefore, he's more suspicious of the fact that we're getting this connection to Vulcan's reveal.
I didn't pick up on that.
Nice.
But
I thought that must be the reason. 'Cause in the original timeline, he knows that Spock's absolutely trustworthy, and it wouldn't occur to him that there's anything suspicious about it. So I thought that was a nice little wrinkle to it.
I like that. I didn't pick up on that either.
I mean, spoiler alert, we are going to do Balance of Terror next week, so maybe I'm wrong, and he does actually do that. But
Run Deep, Run Slow.
Oh yeah, Run Silent, Run Deep, the film.
Run Silent, Run Deep.
Isn't that porno? Run Silent, Run Deep.
No,
that's a different one.
That's your homework for next week.
Porno.
You don't need to assign
Run
that.
Silent, Run Deep.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I'm a single man. It's fine. I already do the porn.
So then they have the briefing and everything. And again, like we said, they divvy up the lines. So Ortegas gets some of the lines that were someone else's. Mabenga gets, I think, Bones' lines, which makes sense. And Spock gets exactly the same lines where he says, if they are still the way we were, then attack might be the best option or whatever it is. So I thought that was brilliant.
Yes.
And then we do see, they come to a bit of a compromise. Kirk wants to destroy them. Pike wants to try and be diplomatic, and they agree, okay, we'll ambush them, but we'll just capture them instead of...
We'll just shoot them a little bit.
Yeah. And it doesn't work out very well for the Farragut. And this is the first of a few interesting directorial choices that I picked up on in this episode. So the Farragut, we see it doing a loop-de-loop, but then we see a shot of Kirk on the Farragut and he's upside down. And it's like, that's not how space works.
No, and he's got inertial dampers.
Yeah, I know it looks cool in the moment, but these are not fighter planes. This isn't top.
Yeah. I must admit, that's one shot that really irked me. It didn't look right.
It stood out as that's not
we
how
used to get in the original series. If they were doing rocking about, they're getting shot, and we're doing a tight turn at speed. They'd go a bit, but they wouldn't go upside down, and that's never happened in Star Trek.
No, there's no upside down in space. It looks cool in the moment, and it adds some kineticism to the action scene, but very silly.
Can I just check the upside down shot? Sorry, I'm just trying to remember. When you see them going upside down, is that from our perspective though, or does their hair kind of fall?
No, it's just from our perspective.
Just from our perspective, yeah.
Sure. At least within their world, they could be they're probably the right way out.
True.
Well, it is because they don't fall out the chair because she ain't got a seatbelt.
There you go. So, at least the shot's only for our benefit. It's not what's happening to them.
It's just an artistic flourish, but not one I was immensely fond of.
No, but it takes a little bit of the sin off it. If they didn't, if their hair started flopping down, then it'd be going, whoa.
It's like, when you put slow-mo in something, they're not actually moving in slow-mo, unless it's the Matrix, but, they're not actually moving in slow motion. Then, Lan beams over and she's lovely now. And we get this thing about Una being incommunicado.
She's been in high security for 7 years.
Yeah, so that's going to pay off later in the episode. But I like how they layer that in.
Didn't Spock make a reference to it earlier as well?
He said...
That's the one which really irked me. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Jim.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, all I was going to say was, it's like he says... I thought you even knew in your time she was deceptive or whatever. It's like, well, yeah, but if you you would remember that no one else knew and that it wasn't that she wasn't in prison. Like he acts as if, what are you, a dick or something? Like you don't know that she's in prison. It's like she wasn't in prison at that time.
I think what it was more getting at is, I thought you knew that she was genetically enhanced, so I'd have thought you'd have worked it out, sort of thing. But yeah, I can see it being.
Maybe it was just being patronizing logical Spock.
Yeah.
I'll buy that.
Very in keeping with Spock sometimes.
Yeah.
I like the interplay between Kirk and Pike. Like, Kirk is questioning Pike's reluctance to fight, and Pike comes back with, well, if you mean am I less willing to take risks than you are, then yes.
What about the SmackDown line that he gives? Yeah, Willow wants to talk about this. Yeah, what's that, Willow? Yeah. When he says... Oh, yeah, and your ship's in smithereens. He just burst out. That proves that he's not playing the Kirk we know, because the Kirk we know would have gone it was because of what you decided to do that my ship got exploded. He would have defended himself to the hill. There's no way Kirk backs down and goes, nah, fair comment.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so maybe, Pike's going to temper some of his worst impulses, but also maybe make him a bit more confident in himself and... more willing to take the bull by the horns. I don't know.
Yeah.
See, that's an interesting question is, would this version of Kirk have done as well as Prime Kirk? And maybe not.
Yeah, I just think again with that missing swagger, I think no matter what you think of Kirk's reign as captain of the Enterprise, I think that was key to it. It was the fact that he was that confident in any situation, whether it be with the ladies or with the like the Romulans or the Klingons or whatever. That was key to the character.
Yeah,
I just hope you guys are right that they will then make this right in the next series. That's that version of.
I feel like that's the plan.
This is 7 years of changes to the timeline.
Yeah.
Like, there's not just that Pike is still the captain of the Enterprise. All sorts of other stuff has happened that we're not seeing here.
Because I'd also enjoy that. I'd also enjoy that from the perspective when you see the Kelvin timeline, you see he's even more rebellious, even more unhinged, basically, because of he hasn't had a stable upbringing. Like we got raised by his uncle, which he didn't like, so it's made him more off the rails. And like this version is a kind of like a softened version of Kirk, so it's kind of like if they are doing that, I love it because that shows like who you're raised by, what experiences you have do affect who you become.
And I still think we should get Captain Kirk in the Multiverse of Madness and bring back Shatner, bring back Chris Pine, and
Please, just do one crossover thing with Star Trek. Why are they not doing it yet? Why have they not done this? Why is Star Trek so slow to do this?
It's close to a crossover. You know, this is
close, but a genuine one with with actors from different shows crossing over, like they used to do when Voyager and Voyager, Next Generation, and Deep Space Nine, when they were on screen at the same time, we had a few little crossovers.
Yeah,
but they are right to do Voyager, a huge crossover.
We had Voyager and Star Trek 6 crossover.
Yeah, but you've soon got kind of. I mean, you've got
sort of. Yeah.
You've got two. The guy who plays
went up to the bridge of the Excelsior with Sulu.
Oh no, sorry. Yeah, sorry. The Voyager did the. So I was thinking the other way. Star Trek 6 crossing over with. Star Trek 6 goes into Voyager. No, I get you. Sorry, I thought you were referencing Tuvok because it wasn't really playing Tuvok. No, I get what you mean now. Sorry, mate. The bit for me is it's the fact that this is the first time, and you've just got the last time Patrick Stewart's pretty much said this last time he's going to play Picard is in this next series. You've got one last opportunity to get the Next Generation crew in a time travel wacky adventure with all the other different time zones. You could use Q for it. You could use whatever you want, and you could have this happening. In fact, this episode kind of felt a bit Q-esque. If you could rewrite this very easily to include Q.
Absolutely, you could, and that'd be cool if Pike met Q. They'd have to do a bit of wrangling for why didn't he mention it or whatever, but that'd be interesting. Yeah. Anyway, Kirk then has his backup plan, and I love that you get like music cues from the movies come in at this point, and you're like, oh, it's going to be a good plan from Kirk. And then we hear a Scottish engineer who's not a miracle worker, which
I've got to say, not the best Scotty impression, but I tried to look it up who did it. I can't find it anywhere.
There is an actor credited, but they're credited as an engineer. So it's
who was it? Is anyone heard of it?
It's nobody mega famous.
When I heard the voice and I heard it was a very cheesy Scottish accent, which some have claimed James Doohan's was. But when I heard it, I was wondering if it was one of the rest of the crew doing.
It's probably listed as engineer. Because if they do want to bring Scotty in at some point,
exactly,
they don't want to tie themselves to somebody.
Yeah, same as they did with Cyborg. Like, you can show back of his head, you can have a vocal cameo, and you can get away with recasting if you decide to do it later.
Oh, this is the heaviest suggestion, certainly, that they're going to use Scotty as the next engineer.
Well, the showrunners have said they're not. They've said they wanted to do that as a little nod. And we might get to Scotty, but not yet. So it's going to be a different engineer.
I don't think we should have Scotty yet. I think we've got enough of the original crew
at
the moment with Uhura, Nurse Chapel, Spock, and M'Benga. I think it's enough of a nod to the original crew members without going silly. We don't, as much as I love the original series, I'm enjoying Strange New Worlds. I'm liking
Yeah, I
the
do.
series of New Trek.
No, I agree. And I'm going to miss Hemner. I think he was amazing in this.
Well,
I mean,
we are meant to be getting not Hemner, but the actor.
More of the actor,
back.
yeah.
He's been recast for season 2 as
yeah, they've said he might not be done. So.
Oh
Yeah.
God!
But
Please say he
they
comes in
reckon
as
he
the
could
next
be the,
engineer, just without prosthetics.
That'd be good. Yeah.
Oh, what's his name?
Bruce Horax, is it?
No, who plays loads of characters in Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
Coombs.
Yeah,
Jeffrey Coombs.
Jeffrey Coombs. I reckon he could. How they're wanting to use him, he could be the new Jeffrey Coombs.
Yeah, it could be.
That's what they did with Admiral Forrest when they killed him off. I actually, he told me this personally, funnily enough. The actor who plays him, Vaughn.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Something Vaughn. He was saying it's like, yeah, we're going to kill up Admiral Forrest. And he's like, you son of a bitch. It's like, we're just going last series. I go, don't worry, you'll just come back. You'll just be loads of aliens and stuff. It's fine. And, he pretty much had another series out of it, like about the same amount of cameos as he did in any other. And he'd been in loads of other Star Treks before his age.
Yeah.
So, yeah. They're very loyal to actors, which I like that they continue.
I like the way they take what was a subplot in Balance of Terror, which was that you had a bit of tension between the Romulan commander and the sub-commander. And they build that into a massive big turn in the plot here, that the sub-commander goes behind the back and actually summons the fleet and everything. And then Kirk, this is very Kirk, that he basically comes up with a bluff. It's like the Corbomite maneuver,
Yes.
But it's very clever and it makes sense and everything.
Can I just ask, with the
now,
look of...
This is the biggest controversy in the episode.
Oh, go on.
When the Romulan fleet warps in.
Mm-hmm.
Because in Balance of Terror, the Romulans don't have warp capability.
Ah.
But I have no problem with the Romulan fleet warping in. Because back in the original series, episode 14, we got warp drive and impulse drive, and it hadn't really been said what the speeds were or anything at the time. And it makes no sense to have a Romulan Star Empire from a species that hasn't got light travel. Otherwise, it'd be hundreds of years.
Yeah, you couldn't have
also, like, we've got this big scary enemy. Have they go walk? Nah. Like, so basically, you just have to outrun them.
Unless it's just, the Romulan Star Empire is literally just Romulus and Rom 2, and they've just given it a ridiculously over-the-top title. But,
it wouldn't.
It's one of them where it shouldn't have been.
We're coming to Earth. We'll be there in 10,000 years.
Yeah.
I think we might have a weapon that'll beat you by then.
I've got to also throw in two things. One is like when I was first watching this, I was kind of like, I was thinking it's like, well, the actor isn't giving me anything of Mark Leonard, the one who's playing the captain of the Romulan ship. But when I second watched it, like, and even in the first watching, I was going, he's giving a really interesting performance, though. Even then, I recognized it. Second time, I just lost all that stuff of like, I'm glad because he's giving a really great performance. The other thing I just want to mention is the uniforms. They looked a little joke shoppy to me. I'm sorry. I think they would look better in the original uniforms for the Romulans.
I think they've sort of gone to next gen and what we saw in Picard season 1.
Yeah, it felt like it was next gen.
We've got the shoulder pads, but it's black. It's like black leather.
Yeah, they've taken the design, like they've taken the color and the design and the sash from the original and tried to upgrade it the way they've done with the other uniforms. Didn't bother me, but if it does,
I mean, not everything has to be rubber. That's all I'm saying. It just looked a bit rubbery and a bit. I don't know. Just rubbery looks either cheap or slightly kinky. There's one of two things that rubber does.
The Romulans
it doesn't make me think
a little bit cheap and kind of kinky, so maybe it's quite fitting. There's a big battle which looks amazing. The Enterprise gets away, and I did
we do have the nice line from the Romulan captain where he does Mark Leonard's line.
Yes,
another time we could have been friends.
And that's really interesting that he says the same thing to Pike, even though Pike reacted to him completely differently. Yeah. But he still feels that same respect.
And it speaks to performances as well, because this guy sounds just so weary from it all. It's like he's so put up with war. Whereas Mark Leonard more sound almost poetic in the way he delivered it. It's like he was still being quite stoic. So they're both very valid choices, but very different. And that could be accounted for by the fact they're dealing with two different captains. They deliver the same sentiments. Like with both of you, I think we could have been friends. But with you, I'm trying to be more stoic because you're more of a warrior. You're more of a man of peace. And that speaks more to my weariness at war.
Yeah.
I think the first version went into battle mode, you know, when Kirk picked a fight. It's like, right, I've got to go full on. But it's interesting that both of them are like, this is my final duty that I've got to do. And the parallels are brilliant.
But don't you feel like one thing it really brought sharply to my focus was that Kirk is more of a warrior in a battle, whereas Pike will always lean towards peace. Yeah. And like he will do tactics if he needs to, and he's very good at it. But it's not something he really gets excited by. Whereas Kirk, I'm not saying he loves battle, but it's like he will think militarily. He will go into that mode more. And it was just really nice. It's almost like the reaction of the Romulan tells you about the captain.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I did wonder if they were going to do a Wrath of Khan here when Pike's like, oh, it's Spock, and he runs down to sickbay. I thought, no, are they going to do the Spock's going to be in the thing?
I have been and always shall be.
Yeah,
your friend.
I did wonder, but they didn't, thankfully. And this is where my second directorial nitpick comes. And I think it's quite telling that I meant to write in my notes, not a fan of the Steadicam shot of Pike in sickbay, but autocorrect has changed it to not a fan of the Steadicam shit of Pike in sickbay. So I think my autocorrect knew what I was thinking. Yeah, basically where they've got that shot and the camera's sort of pointing up at Pike's face and it looks like he's kind of floating through everything. And I'm just... It's not a camera shot I'm a big fan of. I think it always looks cheesy whenever you do it. Maybe because in the UK, Mitchell and Webb did it in one of their comedy shows, and that's just kind of where my mind goes whenever I see it. But yeah,
which is that? I love the one which they do with it, which is about the Nazis and their uniforms.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, sorry, that just seems very apropos, seeing as these are
we the bad guys? But yeah, so maybe that's why I don't like the shot. But I just felt like it takes you out of it. I didn't. It's meant to be an emotional scene. Pike's rushing to Spock's bedside, and we get this silly camera angle. Wasn't a fan.
And I'm going to go for the writing side of it now because I think it seemed a little forced that in every reality, no matter what you do, Spock's the one who always dies. I would have much preferred it. It's like, look, I tried looking at different realities. One of her dies. One this person. Like you don't have to make Spock the center of fucking everything. Like I agree with what they were saying about like he's got some important things to do. That was a really nice element to bring in.
Yeah, that was good.
Think about because I know like earlier on in the series they referred to him as a favored son of Vulcan, where it's like he's only a lieutenant at this stage. He hasn't really done shit. You know, it's like I thought that was a little forced then, whereas now you can build on the fact that everything he's got to do. But surely all the crew.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did wonder slightly earlier in the episode, I was like, oh shit, what's going to happen? Is Kirk's going to die in this timeline? And that's why Pike can't do it. But it makes every bit as much sense it being Spock. And in fact, for the story and the emotions and the characters, it makes more sense it being Spock. But I did wonder for a second, is that going to be what happens?
In this reality, I mean, it just seems very fanciful that it's like, no matter what you change, Spock always dies.
Yeah.
Why? Seems
always Spock. Why?
I mean, it's only because it was such a well-written episode that I'm nitpicking something like this. I mean, by the way, there's a credit to this episode that this is what I'm focusing on because it was so tightly written generally. I thought that was a bit of a misstep. You could have said, no matter what I change, either it leads to war or it leads to something. Something.
Yeah. And I love the fact that they say the only person who will ultimately make peace with Romulus is Spock. And you're like, yeah, that's right, actually, when you look at what Spock does do.
I've watched that.
That's brilliant. And then, this is where we get to the wrap-up then. So old Pike comes back and they realise everything we've been talking about. I like when the doorbell goes though, and old Pike sort of goes, "Oh yeah, I'm going to have a chat with Kirk," and he sort of looks back on it fondly, and I really liked that touch that he brought to it.
And then they sit at the table and they just like go, "Hey, tell me about yourself." That's so Pike
and
to do that.
And he mentions his dad. He goes,
"Yeah,
my dad was the first officer on the Kelvin."
Yeah, that's when we get that moment in, and
which notably, he wasn't the captain on the Kelvin, and he didn't die on the Kelvin. Yeah. So that's it's nice.
Which I mean, the only thing which I wish they would bring in, and okay, this is a personal one, but I spoke last week about the fact that in the books, they for a little while had this ongoing continuity where they wrote stuff where it's like everything within the books made sense of itself to something which hadn't happened on screen, and they always had Kirk's dad as security. I just want to make them one nod where it's like, well, actually, you started in security, then went over to That's only for me. I know no one else is waiting for this, but just for me personally.
Yeah, it was one of those sort of accepted facts that you had in the expanded universe that everybody just accepted as true, even though it had never been said on screen. And certain elements of that did make the way into canon, like Hikaru Sulu. The name Hikaru came from a novel. And eventually it was adopted, and things like that. So that would be good if they had a little nod to it.
Yeah.
Then Pike deletes the letter. There's a lovely scene with Spock where they talk around it, but don't quite get to what's happened. But I love it when Spock says, like, I feel like I owe you a great debt of gratitude, but I don't know what for.
Yeah.
Captain Chris.
Yeah.
Oh man, like that.
Your little time wave from the Vulcan mind meld coming back.
Yeah, and another thing is this again just adds more richness to the menagerie, because now you've got Spock who's like, I don't know how, but I feel like he saved my life somewhere, and he's done it. And he ends up like this because of it. So Spock feels even more obligated.
I never considered that. See, this is what I mean. I love it when they do something which, when you watch the original episode back, it adds texture to it.
Yeah,
it's like, like they recently did it with Obi-Wan Kenobi. They had the moment where Darth Vader actually says to Obi-Wan Kenobi, "It's like you didn't kill Anakin. I did." And that adds to when he says that, it's like, well, no, he said that he did that. So, that's where that was lovely. I don't mind that. It's only when they do something which takes away from the original episode. It's adding to it. It's fine. That's great.
When you say it like that, that adds so much more to why
I feel like
went out of his way for the menagerie.
Yeah. And then there's a bit of we get a little song on the bridge, and Pike goes around giving everyone the nod, and it's kind of like Wayne's World, like, let's do the super happy ending.
Mega happy ending, yeah.
But then we don't, because we get the cliffhanger, and Una gets arrested, and she gets arrested by Captain Pike's girlfriend, and it's very end of Lower Decks, it just...
Yeah, and like, this is something that's been referenced, though. Una's been in maximum security for 7 years.
Yeah, it's set up nicely.
So, like, by that timeline, she stays in prison, but we don't have that timeline anymore.
And the beauty of this is he's been told that she ends up in prison for 7 years, so he can change his approach. Exactly. So, like, there's a reason why, because, I get the idea of, like, well, as soon as you go into a future, you change it automatically by being there. However, some things are more of a stretch than others. Like you were saying, like, the source, like, some deflector being a different color. Like, there's no particular reason why changing time would cause that. That's you've really got to think about why that would be different. Whereas this, it's completely written in. He knows in the original time, or in the timeline that he saw, she was stuck there for 7 years. So he knows he's got to do something real special to change that, and he can.
Yeah, but then he'll do it. An old Pike will turn up and go, every time you do this, Dr. Mabenga dies.
Old Pike goes, for fuck's sake, again?
people die every time I do anything? Yes, they do. Here's a script for the next 7 years. Just follow this and you'll be okay. And then the third of my trilogy of questionable directorial flourishes. Why does Pike look at the camera right at the end? That's just so weird.
I know I should hate it, but I don't. I just don't.
I don't
I should
hate it, but it's so weird. Like, it's cheesy as hell.
I don't care. It's like it's the end of their series.
Set us up so nice for season 2 in, and it's got Una to rescue.
Yeah.
It's got Lan to come back.
Yeah.
Or go help and rescue. We need a new engineer.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to see who Bruce is going to be.
Yeah. We've got Captain Angel's going to return and presumably bring Cybok with them. So that'll
much more Gorn. I think we're going to see a lot more Gorn.
More Gorn.
Gorn are their Klingons. That's still my prediction. and they've showed that so far this series.
But
I think this should be it for Romulans.
I want to finish this wrap up of this episode then with the question: is this the best first season of any Star Trek show ever?
I think yes.
That's still fucking strong. I mean, I'd probably say yeah.
I'm not. See, original series. Original series is the only one that's a contender to it. I think
to me, yeah.
Agree on that.
To me
yeah, but it still had like dodgy episodes.
It did have dodgy episodes, but it did make 30 episodes compared to 10.
Also, they didn't do an episode where they all lost. Sorry. That one is my least favorite of this. But again, even in that, I enjoyed the acting and I enjoyed the writing scene by scene. Just not the overall idea that they lose at the end. Just turns me off.
Yeah, but I still think there's another part of that.
No, but again, that still doesn't matter because if you do it a series later, in that episode, they still out lose. I don't want an episode of Star Trek unless it's a direct two-parter where they lose.
I have no problem with that. I was a big fan of Terra Hawks.
But original series though. So okay, there are some clunkers, but you've got obviously Balance of Terror. You've got The Enemy Within. You've got The Naked Now. You've got Arena. You've got Devil in the Dark. You've got Space Seed. You've got The City on the Edge of Forever. It's like I don't know that I can say this was better.
You're right. I honestly think that it might be original series, first series, and then this.
It's very close.
Again, because you've got to, like you say, Jim, you've kind of got to do a little bit of adjusting your score for the fact of how many episodes they did in the first series of the original series.
I think if you took the 10 best of season 1 of the original series and put them against these 10, original series would win. But that's not fair either because this is done.
Okay, I think that's fair then.
But with the episodes where they lost, this has 9.5. So the original series on that scale can only have 1.5 episodes that are bad.
Let's do this then. Maybe on our gradient, which we're scoring on, for the fact if you're going to pick any 10 episodes of the original series, it does beat this. However, the fact they made more, which meant some episodes did suffer on quality, means that this one wins. So it's like they win on different grading scores.
I think this one definitely wins in consistency. And I would say out of the 10, this finale and the Elysium Kingdom one, them two can stand shoulder to shoulder as all-time Star Trek classics.
And I'd also throw in, I mean, I spoke about when we were watching Picard. I think that may be one of the finest series of Star Trek we've ever seen, the second series of Picard, given how much of a deficit was going on following the first series, which was not my favorite. I thought that was stunning as a complete piece of work. And this 10-episode arc it's not quite up there, but it's kind of like it's really high up for a first series.
Like, when we're arguing over minuscule percentages of which one's best, I think we could all agree it's been an awesome season.
It has.
Yeah, and it's completely set up to, in the next series, be one of the finest episode, like series of Star Trek. Like if they follow this formula, they could write one of the best series of Star Trek.
This could go on forever. It can't because
it can go on 7 years.
It's got a set ending.
Lower Decks season 3,
which is odd that they do 7 that TNG and Voyager and DS9 had 7 seasons.
Yeah, funny that. So Lower Decks, which we're getting in about 6 weeks' time, has a lot to live up to, coming off the back of an awesome season of Picard, an awesome season of Strange New Worlds.
I love Lower Decks, and I love Lower Decks in a different way.
Oh,
yeah, exactly. I mean, with Lower Decks, if that's in 6 weeks, do we have anything before that?
We are going. No, we've got no new Star Trek that's been announced.
So,
what do you mean? I'm running out of juice here. I need my fix.
Well, we're gonna still keep going. We're doing the Balance of Terror next week as an ode to this episode, and it's a great episode.
Yeah,
and then we're jumping back into the Dominion War.
Yep.
Nice.
And we're going back into that with a bang. With the Wave the Warrior.
So
yes, I believe 136th ever stream. Like that's a celebration.
I can't remember what number.
I was saying this.
It'll be our 161st episode.
There
James,
we go.
This was what I was saying. We
161st episode is always a big celebration.
Yes, yeah. We have to launch into that celebration, Jim. Like we've got to sell it as if it's because it was going to be 100th stream, so we have to sell it like it's 100th stream.
I can't remember what it is for our live.
Better.
What
better.
Live stream it is.
So
156th episode special.
I think it'll be our. It may be our 68th, I think, live stream.
Oh well, that's the one. So new Star Trek may be taking a break. We're most likely not going to. We've got plenty of other stuff to cover. It's going to be nice jumping back to Deep Space Nine for a little bit while we wait for Lower Decks. And it's been an awesome season of Strange New World. Thank you for listening to us talk about it for the last 10 weeks.
And I see my plug filter is working very nicely on my backdrop, which just allows through the adverts for the Dr. Squee Show and Retrack.
I have noticed.
And due South by Southeast just there in the corner.
At the risk of doing more plugs then, so if you want to get in touch with us, we're on Twitter at RetrekPod. You can email us retrekpod@gmail.com. You can check these videos out on YouTube. You can check out Elliot's Model Studios channel, Retrek Model Studios.
Yeah, getting videos out every week at the moment.
Yeah, and Dr. Squee's got all sorts of things going on with the Dr. Squee Show. What have we got?
Well, let me just give a shout out firstly to Elliot. Said like the Retrek Model Studios. You heard how passionately I spoke about shirts before. That didn't happen before I met Elliot. He's igniting my passion. Like Dan Discovery does such a piss poor job, even I can tell. But that's another thing. It's Elliot mostly. But on the Dr. Squee Show, I know I've been plugging this. Like I think I've plugged this about 4 times already. But I finally, just before this, did my interview with the guy about the Bitcoin documentary, Darcy Weir. It's really fascinating, genuinely. We get into a lot of the stuff. And I'm trying to set up at the moment. I know one of the people who's worked on Kevin Smith's new film. He's just released a film. No, not Clerks 3. However, this guy probably does cameo in that. But Kevin Smith was talking a long time ago about a film which was an anthology film called Kilroy Was Here, based on the World War II emblem of Kilroy, which if you look it up, you'll find it anyway. And it's basically in each series, Kilroy is the baddie, and he features in each of them. And he's just released it as a non-fungible token. I happen to know Andy McElfresh, who does a podcast with Kev, who did he wrote one of the stories.
Right.
So I'm trying to sort out an interview at the moment. I'm hoping to double this up with the Bitcoin documentary because Kev's just sold that film. You can now buy it as a non-fungible token,
right,
with the Kilroy image, so that you can then put that into a short of your own, which he's going to then use the best of for the sequel to the film.
Wow.
So it's really apropos, and I happen to know someone who worked on it. So hopefully he'll come and talk to me.
Oh, I mean, he's nothing if not inventive, Kevin Smith. I mean, I'm not even sure I understood half of that, but it sounds fascinating.
And that's why you need to listen to the Doug the Squeeze show next week, which will hopefully have an interview with both of these gents. And I'm also talking to a guy, Omar, whose surname escapes me. He's just launched a comic book novel hybrid, which he's launching at San Diego Comic-Con.
Fantastic. So lots to check out there if you've got room in your life for more geekery that isn't directly Star Trek related. But thanks for trekking with us this time, and we will see you next time on the Retrek.
Thank you.
LLAP.
Bye-bye.